Did you know the ancient world sometimes hid things so disturbing that even modern archaeologists hesitate before speaking out loud? Dig sites haven't only uncovered art, tools, or lost cities. They've also uncovered moments that feel deeply wrong, with strange remains, sealed rooms, and markings cut into places no one was meant to enter. Some finds never reach classrooms or museum tours. They stay in private reports, locked files, and uneasy talks between researchers. This video will uncover the ancient world's darkest secrets, the discoveries archaeologists hide from us, so it's important to watch till the end. Number 15. Charterhouse Warren Shaft Massacre. Nobody expects the English countryside to hold something like this. Fields, sheep, quiet air, and then suddenly a deep natural shaft dropping 15 meters into darkness. Inside it, archaeologists uncovered disarticulated remains from at least 37 people, including men, women, and children. Nothing about the placement suggested a burial. Bones were scattered, broken, and mixed, not arranged. A detailed study published through Cambridge University Press showed clear signs of killing, butchery, and deliberate dumping, most consistent with a single violent event during the early Bronze Age. Cut marks and fractures revealed that bodies were processed after death, not simply discarded. A release linked to the University of Oxford went further, noting evidence consistent with probable consumption, interpreted as an act meant to dehumanize enemies, turning violence into ritualized othering. The shaft was not a grave, it was a disposal site. Number 14. Feathered Serpent Pyramid. Sacrificial burials. Teotihuacan doesn't ease you into its darker side. Beneath the Feathered Serpent Pyramid, archaeologists uncovered large-scale sacrificial burials, firmly documented as part of the city's political and ritual system. Excavations revealed groups of bound individuals placed beneath the structure as offerings tied to state power. A Cambridge University Press Journal study identified a set of 72 adult males, many interpreted as warriors or soldiers. Some wore necklaces made from real human maxillae, not symbolic copies. Those jawbones once belonged to other people. Research across Teotihuacan's ritual complexes also points to a broader sacrificial landscape involving hundreds of victims, though scholars caution that not all of those belong to this single pyramid alone. The site reflects organized, repeated ritual killing connected to authority, construction, and control. What visitors see above ground are carvings and stone heads. What rests below tells a different story, one where architecture and death were built together, deliberately, layer by layer. Number 13. The Children of Llullaillaco. High on the slopes of Llullaillaco, near the summit, archaeologists found something that still feels painfully human. 3 naturally preserved children left where the air itself became their shelter. They are known as the Children of Llullaillaco, and research links them directly to the Inca Capacocha ritual, a state ceremony that included child sacrifice. Public summaries often place the event around the late Inca period, near AD 1500. A major PNAS study examined their hair and revealed extremely high coca metabolites, showing the children were given coca leaves, along with chemical signals consistent with alcohol consumption. The pattern of substances in the hair strands indicated staged ritual preparation, not a single moment. Coverage in Science and Nature further discussed how the maiden showed the clearest biochemical evidence of these substances close to death. The children were not lost. They were taken. Their preservation lets modern science reconstruct their final months, turning frozen silence into a record of ritual, control, and a carefully managed farewell. Number 12. Huanchaquito-Las Llamas Mass Sacrifice. This site didn't unfold slowly, it exploded into history. At Huanchaquito-Las Llamas, archaeologists uncovered evidence for a single mass sacrificial event involving more than 140 children and over 200 young camelids. Peer-reviewed excavation reports published through PMC date the event to around AD 1450 and link it to the Chimu state. Many of the children bore cut marks consistent with chest opening, and the camelids were killed in the same ritual context. The scale has no parallel anywhere else in the ancient world. National Geographic later reported on the site, confirming the numbers and emphasizing how abruptly the ceremony appears to have taken place. There were no generations of offerings. This was one moment, one decision, one coordinated act. The children were laid out in rows, the animals beside them. Footprints preserved in the soil show adults moving back and forth between victims. What was once a coastal town edge became a frozen imprint of ritualized catastrophe. Number 11. Wharram Percy, Revenant, Remains. At first glance, Wharram Percy looked like another abandoned medieval village. Then human bones started appearing in places they didn't belong. A scientific study available through Science Direct documented remains that were burned, broken, chopped, and cut. Then radiocarbon dated them roughly to the 11th through 13th centuries. These were not cemetery burials. Bodies had been dismembered, fractured while still fresh, and exposed to fire. Research teams examined what kind of activity could create such an assemblage. Coverage associated with the University of Oxford outlined a leading interpretation: actions taken to prevent the dead from returning as revenants, figures feared in medieval belief to rise and harm the living. Importantly, the paper stresses nuance. The evidence shows intentional post-mortem destruction, but scholars carefully frame the anti-revenant explanation as argued, not absolute. And now let's move to number 10. Shimao Skull Pit. Standing at the ruins of Shimao, it's hard to tell where a city once ended and a warning began. Near what archaeologists identified as the East Gate, excavation teams uncovered a pit filled with around 80 human skulls. Not full skeletons, just heads. The location alone mattered. Gates controlled who entered, who left, and who was allowed to exist inside the walls. Reputable science reporting, including coverage tied to Nature's genetic research, confirmed the skulls were not random victims of war debris. DNA testing showed that roughly 90% of the individuals were male, overturning earlier assumptions that the sacrifices were mostly female. The placement, separation of heads, and city gate context point toward organized human sacrifice, tied directly to the power structure of the settlement. Shimao itself dates back over 4,000 years and was once one of the largest known stone-walled cities of its era. Number 9. Royal death pits of Gold distracts people from bones. At the Royal Cemetery of early excavations uncovered astonishing jewelry, instruments, and elaborate tombs. But alongside those royal burials were something else entirely: pits filled with carefully arranged human bodies. The Metropolitan Museum of Art summarizes Leonard Woolley's original interpretation, suggesting attendants may have taken poison voluntarily to accompany elites into death. Later scholarship complicated that story. Some researchers point to physical evidence and ritual handling that raise the possibility of forced killing, post-mortem preparation, or ceremonial execution. The debate remains open, and that uncertainty matters. What is not disputed is the scale and intention. These were not emergency burials. The bodies were laid out in formation, adorned, positioned, and sealed into the funeral architecture. Whether coerced or ritualized, people died as part of a royal display. The cemetery doesn't just document leadership, it records how power extended beyond life, arranging human deaths into part of the monument itself. Number 8. Juanita, the ice maiden of Amparo glaciers, don't usually give people back. In 1995, melting ice on Mount Amparo revealed a tightly wrapped bundle. Inside was a young girl, later known as Juanita, or the Ice Maiden. She was an Inca child sacrifice, preserved by cold so completely that skin, hair, and organs survived. Reporting from AP News stated she was likely between 13 and 15 years old. and forensic examination indicated her probable cause of death was a powerful blow to the head. She had not simply frozen, she had been killed. Archaeological and documentary work, including PBS Nova features, described the extremely high-altitude ritual routes, camps, and offerings associated with Andean mountain sacrifice. Juanita was part of that ceremonial world. Her clothing, the objects placed with her, and the violence that ended her life fit into a larger system of state religion. Number 7. Talheim Death Pit. Some discoveries don't whisper, they confront. At Talheim, archaeologists uncovered a pit containing the remains of 34 individuals, men, women, and children together. There was no sign of ceremony, no grave structure, no attempt at order. The injuries told the story instead. Blunt force trauma, embedded projectiles, and fracture patterns showed they were violently killed, not buried after a disease or accident. The site dates back to the early Neolithic period, associated with the linear band ceramic culture, approximately 7,000 years ago. Talheim is now one of the most cited examples of organized massacre among early farming communities. Scholarly work examining mobility and settlement patterns has used the site to rethink how conflict functioned in early Europe. These were not isolated deaths. They were coordinated. The pit holds evidence that social boundaries, group violence, and targeted killing existed far earlier than comforting timelines suggest. Number 6. Nazca trophy heads. You don't need a full skeleton to tell a violent story. Across southern Peru, archaeologists have uncovered numerous Nazca trophy heads, preserved crania deliberately separated from bodies and ritually modified. Science news reporting and academic osteological studies documented consistent physical features. Clean decapitation cuts, holes drilled through the forehead, and alterations that allowed cords to pass through, making the heads wearable or suspendable. These were not battlefield accidents. The preparation followed repeated methods. Some were found in caches, others appear in Nazca art, shown hanging from belts or carried in ritual scenes. Researchers have linked them to religious practices, warfare, symbolism, and ceremonial displays. The faces belonged to real people. Their transformation into objects was the ritual. What makes the finds especially disturbing is how standardized they are. Each drilled hole, each cut edge, each modification reflects a learned process. The heads were not just taken, they were redesigned to serve a role after death. All right, now let's talk about number 5, Tollense Valley battlefield. The river didn't erase what happened here. It kept it. Along the Tollense Valley, archaeologists began recovering scattered human bones, then weapons, then patterns no one expected. What emerged was a late Bronze Age battlefield, usually dated between 1300 and 1200 BC, often centered around about 1250 BC. Scientific investigation, including coverage by science, showed trauma from clubs, arrows, and spears across the remains. By 2017, researchers had already identified around 140 individuals, with later work adding fragments and expanding estimates carefully. This was not a skirmish. The number of wounded, the weapon types, and the spread of remains forced scholars to rethink warfare in prehistoric Europe. Antiquity described it as the earliest known large-scale battlefield on the continent. What unsettles archaeologists is not only the violence, but the organization behind it. People arrived equipped, they fought, they died where they fell, and the valley quietly absorbed the aftermath. Number 4. Herxheim ritual pits. Herxheim didn't look violent until the bones were cleaned. Then the cuts appeared. Excavations at this Neolithic enclosure uncovered human remains, showing systematic dismemberment, extensive cut marks, skull processing, and deliberate marrow extraction. A landmark study published in Antiquity argued that the treatment patterns matched animal butchery, not normal burial or war casualties. Bodies had been dismantled in stages, Skulls were broken. Long bones were split. The researchers concluded the evidence supported ritualized cannibalism, not survival activity. This interpretation remains debated in archaeology overall, but Herxheim stands as one of the most intensively documented sites arguing for it. What makes the case strong is repetition. The same treatment appears across multiple deposits. The same anatomical targets, the same fragmentation logic. Herxheim doesn't present chaos, it presents a process, and that process transformed human bodies into something used, not mourned. Number 3. Abydos retainer sacrifice. Long before pyramids dominated the skyline, Egyptian kings were already shaping death to match authority. At Abydos, archaeologists excavating royal enclosures linked to King Aha uncovered clustered subsidiary burials surrounding elite structures. A Penn Museum release in 2015 described this as the first clear archaeological evidence that these individuals were not ordinary attendants, but sacrificial retainers killed around the time of royal funerals. The burials were organized, simultaneous, and tightly connected to the king's mortuary complex. Broader scholarship places the practice primarily within the First Dynasty, before later traditions replaced human sacrifice with figurines. These people were not honored separately. They were incorporated. Their deaths reinforced hierarchy even after the ruler's own life ended. Abydos shows an early stage of Egyptian statehood where loyalty was not symbolic. It was physical, and it followed the king underground. Number 2. Tollund Man. The face is what makes it hard to forget. Tollund Man was found preserved in a Danish bog with a rope still around his neck. Forensic study confirmed death by hanging. Skin, stubble, and closed eyes survived, creating an immediacy most ancient remains don't carry. Scientific and museum sources emphasize a key point. There is not enough evidence to determine whether he was ritually sacrificed or formally executed. Both interpretations remain open. National Geographic and other outlets describe the discovery, the preservation, and the autopsy conclusions while stressing the uncertainty. What is known is how deliberately his body was placed. He was laid carefully, not discarded. His stomach contents were analyzed. His posture appeared intentional. The bog sealed him, but it didn't explain him. Tollund Man occupies that uneasy space where violence, belief, and punishment intersect without leaving a clear label behind. Number 1. Neolithic execution graves. Some graves answer questions no one wants asked. A PNAS study at Huanchaquito-Las documented an early Neolithic mass grave where individuals showed systematic blunt force trauma and arrow injuries, pointing to controlled, organized killing rather than chaotic conflict. The victims were not buried with care. They were deposited after death. Supporting this pattern, an open-access PMC study from Halberstadt examined skeletal remains bearing repeated blows to the back of the head, consistent with execution-style killing. Together, these sites expanded what archaeologists understood about early European violence. They showed it could be deliberate, methodical, and socially structured. Not raids, not accidents, acts carried out with intent. These graves don't record a battle, they record decisions. And the bones still carry the mechanics of how those decisions were enforced. So, that was the final one. Hope you like the video. If you do, then don't go without giving us a like, comment, and if you're new to our channel, then press the subscribe button, which keeps us connected. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned with us.